11:30 the Prime Ministers will sign a final treaty none of them have read. They sign a bundle of amendments they cannot even understand. Yesterday the Danish Parliament refused a referendum on a treaty they have not read. They breach the Danish constitution and may be brought for court to have a referendum. Don't read, sign is a cynical moral. All negotiations in the IGC and the Linguistic Lawyers Group have been kept absolutely secret towards many members in this Parliament. First, they undo 2 referendums rejecting the Constitution. Then they negotiate in secret and keep the content under a new name. The Lisbon Treaty will dissolve the existing EU, establish a new state with joint citizenship, legal personality and all tools of nation states. Most laws will be adopted by civil servants in secret. Democratic deficit will grow. My group proposed to cancel the signature until you have finally read the final text. Thank you, President.
Ich möchte als Fraktionsvorsitzender eine Sache diesem Hohen Haus zur Kenntnis bringen. Es ist nicht üblich, aus der Konferenz der Präsidenten zu berichten. Aber Sie sollten sehr wohl wissen, meine Damen und Herren, Kolleginnen und Kollegen, dass der einzige Fraktionsvorsitzende, der in der Konferenz der Präsidenten darum gebeten hat, eingeladen zu werden, um an der feierlichen Unterzeichnung des Vertrages in Lissabon teilnehmen zu dürfen, Herr Bonde war. Ich glaube, das Hohe Haus sollte das wissen. Kein anderer Fraktionsvorsitzender hat darum gebeten. Herr Bonde, der hier so rumschreit, wollte unbedingt dabei sein, wenn es um die Unterzeichnung des Vertrages geht. Also, ich denke, das ist einer der Doppelstandards, mit dem wir hier leben müssen. Und eine andere Bemerkung, die ich machen möchte, ist die: Ich habe als Schüler in einem deutschen Gymnasium gelernt, dass im Reichstag der Weimarer Republik es eine Strategie gab, den politischen Gegner niederzuschreien, und zwar chorweise. Die Fraktion, die das dort eingeführt hat, war die Fraktion von Adolf Hitler. Heute habe ich mich daran erinnert gefühlt. Vielen Dank.
Shouting down representatives of Parliament, Commission and Council during the signing ceremony was intolerable and must not be tolerated. It brings the worst of the football stadium into Europe's highest chamber and recalls the actions of the communists in the Russian Diet and the National Socialists in the German Reichstag. My formal request, Madam President, is this. My group demands that in future the Presidency use the powers granted to it under our rules of procedure to evict from the chamber members behaving in that fashion.
Aux collègues, ne dramatisez pas trop. S'il y a 50 fous dans une salle, il y en a 700 qui sont contre, et ne faites pas une histoire d'État parce qu'il y a 50 débiles mentaux qui ont dérangé ce qui s'est passé tout à l'heure. Calmons-nous, calmons-nous, et Graham, ne demandons pas la sortie physique. Je crois qu'un Parlement libre est un Parlement qui supporte des fous, même s'ils sont désagréables.
I took part in a peaceful manifestation against a celebration of a charter which is part of a constitution where I cannot even get the consolidated texts and see the relevance and the meaning. And you cannot as well. What you are going to sign tomorrow is a treaty none of you have read simply because it's not possible to read it. You conquer our voting time to celebrate a victory over democracy, and therefore I will not attack my colleagues. But I have to say to Mr Schulz, I did not take part in crying. I understand it entirely, but we have in Denmark a different tradition. So I was there with my T-shirt calling for a referendum, and I think all of us should call for a referendum. This is the democracy norm you are defending. Thank you.
President, mention your speech in which you talked about that took place in Strasbourg in December, and since that time, under Rule 147 of our revered Rules of Procedure, you have called before you 13 members of this Parliament to face disciplinary action. And it seems to me that this has been done on a pretty arbitrary basis. One of the ones that you called, Cathy Sinnott from our group, I doubt has ever shouted at anybody in her life. Another one of the members that you called to appear before the headmaster's study, an Austrian member, was actually in Frankfurt on the day, so he must have one hell of a voice, mustn't he? And I ask, why only 13? There were about 80 of us involved in these so-called disturbances. In fact, you named me yourself in the Conference of Presidents as being one of the causes of the trouble. So why am I not being punished? I'm Spartacus.
Could it be that the reason you've acted in this arbitrary fashion, tearing up the rule of law, is because you are taking out on us the surrogate contempt you feel for the national electorates who keep voting no on the Lisbon Treaty whenever they're given the opportunity? If I'm wrong, prove me wrong by holding the referendums that you used to support when you thought you could win them. Put the Treaty of Lisbon to the people. Pactio Olisipiensis Sensendae of Rule 19, which puts this House in plain violation of its own regulations. We have now departed from the rule of law and given arbitrary power to the Chair to tear up our rule book and proceed as he sees fit. This is plainly illegal under our own rules. This Chamber may be sovereign, but it must nonetheless follow its own rules. This interpretation by the Constitutional Affairs Committee is going to be contested today. It may come before this House in a vote. If we vote in favour collectively, we are voting to abandon the rules under which we proceed. I would almost be tempted to compare it to the Ermächtigungsgesetz of 1933, but I think that would be disproportionate and perhaps a little rude to our President, who is a committed Democrat and a decent man. Let me instead then quote the grandfather of British resistance to totalitarianism, Edmund Burke. They must be worse than blind who cannot see with
to call this a debate because the Minister didn't tell us any of the substance of the negotiations. But of course there is no debate, is there? No debate in the national parliaments, no informed opinion in the press, no debate at all. And why? Because this whole treaty is being put together in secret. And that is being done because you don't want to involve the citizens of Europe. You're fearful that the more they find out about your grandiose plans, the more likely they are to vote no. And what's worse still is the downright dishonesty with which this whole process is being pursued. For Angela Merkel, in a letter, to talk about the proposal, to use different terminology without changing the legal substance, I mean, it's Alice through the looking glass stuff, isn't it? It's the twisting of language. It is the deliberate attempt to stop there being free and fair referendums in European countries. It's your plan to act like a bulldozer, just to sweep aside the French referendum result, the Dutch referendum result, to pursue your political goals without taking the people with you. Well, I've no doubt you think that you're going to get away with it. But if you're proud of your European project, if you're true Democrats, then you join me in the call for let the people decide their own future, don't foist it upon them. Join me in the call for let the people decide their own future, don't foist it upon them. For let the people decide their own future, don't foist it.